Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. And today we're going to talk a little bit about polarity and contrast, and life is just full of it, isn't it? You see this all the time. We see it in the morning. We have sunlight in the morning. We see it at night. We have dark at night. There's polarity. You've got dark on one side, you've got light on the other. That's what it's about. But there are two ways in life that we show up. There are two ways in life. There's some polarity right there. There's some contrast right there. We either show up in alignment or we show up in resistance. There's two ways to show up. Just two. It's easy to figure out. Because when we're in alignment, we are in a present. We are present with what's going on. We are present with our feelings. We're present with the people around us. We are present. We're practicing abundance. We are there. We're fully present. Have you noticed that? How that makes you feel? How much different you feel when you're fully present versus just completely distracted on your phone, talking over here, watching the TV. When you're always all over the place, there is no connection. But when you are in alignment and when you're present, there is massive connection and you feel good about things. You feel abundant. And abundance, by the way, is part of the alignment assignment. When we are in alignment, we feel a lot. We feel all the feelings. That's abundance. We feel fully present. That's abundance. Abundance isn't just about what's in your wallet. Abundance is the way that you feel about your life. It's expectation. It's vibrancy. It's being in the moment and being fully there. Versus being in resistance, there's scarcity attached to that. Have you noticed that? There's lack attached to the resistance. You're not fully present, so you can't give it your all. You can't give it your full attention. You miss the details. And you're focused on the absence of what it is that you have. Have you seen that before? We've all done it. And that's not a put down to anyone. It's just a noticing, putting you on notice that we need to notice we have two different ways of showing up in our lives. We can show up abundantly and being present and being in alignment and being excited and vibrant and having all of that energy way up here. Or we can show up with all the reasons why we're unable, all the reasons why it's a struggle, all the reasons why we're overwhelmed, because that's the focus. There's a huge contrast there between one or the other. And when we show up in this resistance, this scarcity, and this lack, we have no focus. We have no focus. We feel it's way beyond anything that we could ever have. Everybody else has it, but we can't. And then not only do we do that, then we start going really down into that slide, into that hole where we start comparing ourselves. And we know what that is, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. It takes everything away from us. And when I say to you that we get to come back to this place of being centered, and we get to come back to this place of being in our hearts and living from the place of being present and abundant, that's what we're going to get. That's what we're going to experience. And that vibrancy that we talk about, it's palpable. You can feel it. You can almost feel it on your skin. It's that contrasted from this place of resistance, not having enough, absence. I can't, it's too hard. I'm on the struggle bus. I'm overwhelmed. If we choose to live in that place, we're going to choose all the scarcity that comes with it. It holds us back. It doesn't give us the things that we want. It gives us nothing in return. It gives us hand-wringing. It gives us worry. It gives us all those things that we can list that are negative and pulls us down. And then at that point, full on depression and what are we going to do now? So when we understand that there's two different ways of showing up in our lives, and we want all the things, then we don't have any other choice but to be present and to be in alignment and to start saying, yes, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to go after. Because polarity is absolute contrast, and there is black and there is white. There isn't gray in this kind of stuff, because we don't get to go into that limbo place. It's like food. Food is information. Food is either going to feed you and give you what your body needs. It's going to provide the nutrients for different bodily functions, or food's going to inflame you and cause you all kinds of grief. And you know what it feels like when you're inflamed. You know what it feels like to have painful body parts. You know what it feels like to be bloated and just to feel like you don't even belong in your own skin. That's the contrast. That's the polarity between anti-inflammatory versus inflammatory. And when we're talking about being in alignment or being in resistance, we're talking about alignment as being an anti-inflammatory way to live your life. There's less resistance there. There's not, you might have a bump or two along the way, but it's nothing you can't handle. And you have that attitude when you're going down that path. We've been talking about this pretty much all week, with different kind of shines on different things. But I love to stand in the place of looking at the black versus the white. Years and years ago, when I was in college, we used to go skiing on the weekends, and we'd go up to Heavenly Valley. I was at UC Davis, so we'd drive up to on the Reno side or even the California side. Heavenly Valley is where it was. So it's right on the cut, the Reno, the Nevada, California side. And the most interesting thing that I've ever seen in my life was like a National Geographic opening up. At the very, very top of the mountain where you'd go skiing, you get off the lift and you're standing there getting ready to ski down. On the left, you see all this beautiful snow and mountains and the fir trees and all of that. On the right, desert. Just desert and dry and everything. It was like National Geographic magazine opening up and saying, this is this part and this is that part. And it was right there, right in front of me. I'll never forget that as long as I live. That's the contrast that I'm talking about. What do you want? Do you want this abundance? Do you want to be on skis going down these hills? Or do you want to try it going down that dry, rocky mountain? Do you want to try that? I don't think it's going to go well for you. But that's why I love contrast, because it forces us to see the things that we really need to see. Because when we're able to see this abundance, when we're able to be in alignment, we're able to start picking up some energy from it. We're able to fill our hearts with it. We're able to see the possibilities inside of ourselves. We can't do that when we have this stark contrast over here and we've chosen that way to go. It gives us an opportunity to see all the possibilities. No rocky deserts for me either, Sarah, because, that's just it. It's just like, what are you going to do? Go skiing down that hill over there? Absolutely not. If you go over to the right and keep going enough, you will get into the desert, and we don't want to do that. So when we see this, we can go with, how do we feel inside? Are you hungry? Are you hungry? Well, you can be full. And I'm talking about heart, mind, body, and soul. We have soul hunger, don't we? We have hunger for knowledge. We have hunger for connection. We have hunger for food and for all kinds of things. Hunger is a part of who we are. But we can also feel full and satisfied. Because if we're looking at our lives like they're just great big buffet tables, which they are, open your eyes, there it is. I promise you, you'll see it. Then we can start picking and choosing the things that can set our lives off into a different direction. That's the polarity. And we see ourselves going from being frustrated over here from resistance and lack and scarcity to fulfilled, because we recognize and understand that that's not doing a thing for us. As a matter of fact, inside of us lies absolutely every single thing that we need in order to figure out the path that we want to go on. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have guides in our lives, books to read and things to, I'm constantly reading and highlighting and underlining and everything. But listen, I'm going to tell you what it is right now. This is our place of being, where we get to become. We get to become. We get to become the things that we're choosing to become. Instead of saying, I can't, and it's the resist, instead it's the abundance, and it's the alignment. Does that make sense to you? This is all out of I pulled out my old 2017. I'm pulling out all my old journals and reading them to you. I'll keep some of the personal stuff out there, but it just makes so much sense because there's a great divide there. And you can see it just as sure as I could see it when I was standing on top of that mountain getting ready to ski down it. There's snow over here and there's a desert over here. Which way do you want to go? So when we shift, we realign. I want to just ask you a question. I don't even know. I don't know how to do a car or anything like that. But do you remember in the olden days when you'd go in for a tune-up? Do they even call it that anymore? I don't even know they do. But they had spark plugs, and they put the spark plugs in, and all those spark plugs had to go off at the same time so that the car would start. I'm telling you, when we have our spark plugs changed out, they wear out, by the way. When we change out our spark plugs and they're timed just right, that car is going to run. But if they're off, it's going to be hit and miss and hit and miss and hit and miss. And it doesn't have to be that way. We simply need to understand that we need to shift and realign. When we're out of alignment, it feels bad. When we're in alignment, it feels good. And there's nothing wrong with feeling good. When we feel good in our lives, we're lined up with our values. We're lined up with our integrity. We're lined up with all the things that we want in our lives. We face two pains. It's the pain of regret or the pain of having to follow through on something that maybe we're not necessarily excited about. Like, I don't know, Sarah, getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning and going for a run, or whatever it is that we have lined up in our mind's eye of things that we want to accomplish in our lives, of the goals that we want to have happen. When we're in alignment and when we shift and recognize that things need to be thought of differently, this is why we keep going back to this, don't we? Because you don't have freedom between your ears when you're saying, if only, but I can't, but it's too hard, it's overwhelming, it's for them but not for me. Then we put ourselves, what happens? We keep going into the corner, pushed and pushed and pushed, minimized, made smaller, not given any kind of option for any kind of vibrancy in their lives. That's what happens. And so we can shift at that point and just say, I don't want that. I know what I want. I want this. Now I'm going to choose my pain, and I'm not choosing the pain of regret because it's this big. I'm going to choose the pain that's this big that says it's going to be a little bit tough to do, but you're going to do it anyway. We have to do that with our words as well. When we say we're overwhelmed, then we get overwhelmed back. That's what our amygdala does. Our brain does that. Our brain is always trying to keep us congruent. The things that we say, the things that we're thinking about, and all this negativity, we look for evidence to support that. And that's why it's hard sometimes to get out of that, because we say, but see, I told you so. I said it would be too hard, and it was. Well, how about this instead? Shift what you're saying and say, you know what? It might be a little difficult, but I am up for the challenge. I've got what it takes. I can do all things. I can do everything through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things. What is it? How is it that's going to, what is it that's going to make you go to the place of seeing the possibilities? See the possibilities. Dump the negativity. Look for the possibility. Possibility and positive are from the same root word. We can do hard things. Yes, we can, Sarah. We can do all the hard things. We can do all the hard things because we're made like this. You know, we're women. We're strong. We give birth. We have every single human on this planet is because of a woman. If it wasn't for women, there would be no mankind. Well, how about womankind? How about the strength that's inside of you? How about the abilities and the creativity and the absolute endless possibility that is inside of you? There is all of that. But you know what? I want to say something to you. And this is important because what we want oftentimes rises up out of the ashes of what we don't want. Do you get that? You know, you know the Bible verse that God makes beauty from ashes? You know that one? Well, it's out of the phoenix of these ashes that rises up a challenge for you to do something new. I've had this happen so much with my coaching clients. And they saw a picture of themselves and they said, that's not me. And out of that heartache and out of that brokenness, like, I couldn't believe that picture of me. I saw that picture of me and I said, who is that? And then, you know, my husband said, that's you. Your back end or something. You know, when we've all had unflattering pictures. Well, guess what? Out of that rises up a desire that says, oh, hold on. It's time to shift. It's time to realign. It's time to create a new path, not this one. It's not going to work for me. It's happened to me in a divorce. You know, I'll tell you, it absolutely crushed me. But guess what? Out of that came a new mindset, a new realignment, an understanding that I can be strong, I can be an independent woman, that I didn't have to take this assignment that this individual put on me and make my life better for me and for my children. And I did. Because out of that, those ashes rose the beauty. And for you, the same thing can happen. Even out of death can rise the beauty. My friend Christina Rasmussen wrote a book called Second First. And for any of you who have gone through just a devastating breakup or death, or you're facing widowhood or whatever, if you've done this, you need to read this book, Second First. And just a little bit about Christina. Christina was a grief counselor. She was a grief counselor. And let me just tell you, in her grief counseling, and she had her master's. When she had to go through the death of her own husband in his 30s, he died of cancer, and she had 2 little girls, she wasn't prepared for it. So she completely burned down the building and rebuilt it from scratch. That's what she did. She shifted and realigned because the old stuff that she was trained to do, it just didn't work. That's what we have to do. When we see something that's not working, do we just say, okay, that's it, defeated, walk away? No. We shift, we realign, we reconfigure, and out of that ash pile, we figure out a new path. Because there's always a new path. You know that, right? There's always a new path. There's not just one. There are several. If your life isn't going right this way, then maybe it's over here. Maybe it's over here. Do you quit? No. You don't quit. You say, okay, hold the phone. Time out. It's time to reassess. And that's what your realignment assignment needs to be when things aren't going the way you want them to. It's that simple. We just shift. You know, if you're driving a car, one time I was driving, what was it? It was a big rental car, and it was a big, I can't remember. Yeah, it was some kind of a Mercedes thing, and it had paddles on the thing. This is a long time ago. I was at a mastermind, and we were all driving from San Francisco to the Wine Valley because we're going to this big wine thing. And they had paddles that you could shift everything. Well, I had no idea how to do any of that, so I made somebody else drive because I didn't know. This is the only car that they had, and they gave it to me for the same price. But there was shifting involved. And I'd drive, and then it would be like, and I didn't know how to shift it. So I had to learn how to shift the car out of that. And then the guy that I was with at the time, he said, just let me drive. And it was just like, that was like a rocket. And that's what happens with us. When we learn how to shift things as we go, we can keep putting it into higher gear and higher gear and higher gear. We don't have to get stuck. We don't have to stay in first or second gear. We can go all the way up to fifth gear if we just learn how to shift, if we just learn how to work our own lives. Because it might look different for me than it does to you. That's why we don't compare. If I compared my life to yours, I mean, come on. Is that fair? Is that fair for you or me? No. But you know what is if I compare myself to where I was last year at this time, or where I was, or how am I doing on my goals? I mean, this is why we do, this is why we do Take Back Your Life. That it's three months. It's not so that we can say, oh, I'm just terrible, I'm awful, I'm not perfect. No, it's so that we can path correct, so we can find the new lessons and what this experience is trying to teach us, and we can do better. Do better is excellence. Do better is nothing wrong with do better. Do better makes you feel good, right? And it's all right here. And this is what we do in Take Back Your Life. And we do it in 90-day increments so we can see and experience and know, shift, realign, what's going on here. It's a balancing act. It's always a balancing act. It's never done perfectly, but it is done excellently. And the only way we get to that place of excellence is if we give up perfectionism first, and then we also understand that there's going to be a lot of little changes, a lot of little shifts. It's like flying an airplane from New York to San Francisco. They're constantly shifting the navigation because the plane by itself will go off course just a little bit, and they have to put it back on course. Fly back on course over here. Fly back on course. That's it. You just keep flying and shifting and back on course and back on course. We can do hard things. We can do and keep going and choosing the better pain of just, following through on it. And you know what? That's where the miracles happen. It's in those tiny little incremental changes. We're on target. We're getting closer. We're getting closer. Another hour, another 5 miles, another whatever. But that's what it's all about. That's the accelerator. That's what makes it all happen. So in times of transition, when we're transitioning, empty nest, when my kids left and I had to shift, I had to rethink everything. But that was that particular time. In times where you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life, there's a particular time you've got to shift and do it's a little, I told you this yesterday or the day before, it's like doing the cha-cha. You've got 2 steps up and then a couple of steps back. And the whole point is if you understand that there's always going to be contrast in your life, there's always going to be a little polarity even, but if you keep lining yourself back up with the alignment assignment that you have for your life and the things that you want to create, and you come from this place of abundance, you come from this place of vibrancy, that's what's going to constantly show up, because now you're going to start asking for the evidence to support that. How about that, right? And it's just, what's required? Just showing up in your life. Showing up with expectation, showing up with the expectation that abundance is all around you and that vibrancy is all around you. It's just your choice. What are you going to choose? That, or are you going to go back to the whole negative loop? We talked about the negative treadmill yesterday. That treadmill will keep you trapped. You'll go nowhere. Unlike this little plane that we're talking about, the treadmill keeps you in its place, keeps you sad, keeps you small, and it keeps you never quite even being able to lift your head off the pillow. You don't get to a place of vibrancy when you're on the treadmill. but you do get to a place of vibrancy with your expectation of what you can possibly have. And it's all sitting, I mean, it's a big fat buffet. I'm not kidding you. Anything you want's right there. And the thing is that you need to understand, this is the accelerator to all of it. Being present and showing up every single day in your life. Understanding there's a contrast. Understanding there's polarity. And at any point, you can put yourself in the abundance and in the alignment assignment of abundance in that section, or you can, decide to go back to the treadmill. That's where it is. This is the accelerator, is showing up, being present, and not allowing this stuff to go back into the automatic pilot. Because automatic pilot is where we get destroyed. Because those old habits, those old thoughts, those thoughts take us out of the place of freedom and put us into the place of a prison, of being a prisoner of our own thoughts, which then become the things of our lives, which we don't want. So let's be a part of the process. Stop resisting and start being on this alignment of abundance. It's all there. Think about everything you've ever read in the Bible. God is so good and so abundant and so giving and so loving. All of it's right there for the asking. You have not because you ask not. What am I going to tell you about that? I have 8 things. I'm not going to share them today. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. But I have 8 things with Bible verses on how to light this all up. And I'll take the abundance too, Sarah. I'll take the abundance. We've had enough of the treadmill. We've had enough. We've had enough of the prison of our own thoughts. We've had enough. And when we draw that line in the sand and we understand that out of the ashes can come the beauty of the life that we want to live, and those are just choices to make and thoughts to think, all the rest of it falls into place. It's that simple. It's that simple. And you have the tools to do this. So let's start from the place of what can you do. Here's your alignment assignment. First things first, meditate, sister. We need this more than ever. We need to be centered. We get centered when we meditate. It brings down your whole system. It calms your whole body. Your blood pressure drops. Your vagus, this stimulates your vagus nerve. This is the whole thing that we need to just get centered and live from that centered place. So the first thing is to meditate. The second thing is journal. Have a sacred time in the morning. Have a sacred time in the morning. Have 15 minutes of meditation. Then journal, prayer journal, read your Bible, read a book, do something to stimulate your mind, and understand that when you're doing all of these things, you're creating and activating this abundance inside of you. That's what your reticular activating system is going to start looking for. All of these things to support this very thing that you've just gone through with your sacred time in the morning. It sets you up. And number 3 is make sure that you start your day with at least 3 gratitudes. At least 3. That's in our Take Back Your Life journal. When we have gratitude in our heart, we do have abundance, don't we? Because we're so grateful for all the things around us. We're grateful for the people around us. We're grateful for all the things. Just our hot melt mix, for heaven's sakes. Gratitude is such a beautiful thing. And that's the place that we need to be living out of. Not all of this scarcity, not all of this I can't, not all of this hard stuff. That stuff takes us out of alignment. That stuff puts us back into the prison of being held hostage by our own thoughts. It's that clear. Polarity. You got this, you got that. You got abundance, you got scarcity. Let's do abundance. What do you think? Pinkies up? Who's with me? That's where I'm going. I'm hitting the abundance train, ladies. Let's do it. Let's do it together. What do you think?
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.